A big surprise came from the Obama administration last week. The U.S. government will no longer automatically extend residency to Cuban migrants arriving in the country without visas. So, for those of you who don't know, the way it worked with Cuba for a very long time is we were so against the Cuban government that we were trying to fuck them over in any imaginable way. So we said, anybody from Cuba who happens to get here to the U.S., you immediately have citizenship. There's no process, no nothing. You're just a citizen immediately. So anybody who comes from Cuba is by definition a refugee, and you can stay here forever. So Obama said the following: by taking this step, we are treating Cuban migrants the same way we treat migrants from other countries. The Cuban government has agreed to accept the return of Cuban nationals who have been ordered removed, just as it has been accepting the return of migrants found at sea. So one of the reasons he did this is because as soon as the U.S. and Cuba opened up relations and got back on a reasonable footing as opposed to permanently being at a standoff with the embargo and, hey, fuck you, no fuck you. And so when you put all that aside and you say, you know what, let's open up the lines of communication and let's work things out here. Well, a lot of people in Cuba were like, I'm out, bitch. And they went to the U.S. because a lot of them said, I want to live there. I don't want to live here anymore. So there was this giant influx of people coming from Cuba who get the citizenship like that. So Obama's like, okay, little weird, and it's a lot of people, so now we're just going to make it like if you come from Cuba, it's like you come from anywhere else. So we're not saying, no, we're not accepting anybody from Cuba, and none of you could be American citizens, but now you're just treating Cuba like every other nation. And what's the Republican response to this? Flipping out. How dare you? All of a sudden, for the first time ever, the Republican Party is like, refugees? Immigrants? Oh, what are you talking about? We love immigrants. We love refugees. Oh, do you really? Please. What a joke that is. They're the only ones they care about are Cuban. Because they say, oh, no, communists. See, they're escaping big bad communism, so if they come here, then they could stay. So in your estimation, the government of Cuba is worse than Saudi Arabia? Talk to them. Hey, would you take Saudi refugees like that? Give them immediate citizenship? Hell no. No. Saudi Arabia is a great country. So I don't know. Why would we? It's not like they have a worse situation living in Saudi Arabia than people do in Cuba. Yeah, they do. But see, the way it works is communism bad. So if you come here, well, we'll give you freedom. Wahhabi theocracy, ISIS style. What do you mean? They're our ally. If you come here from there, you gotta go back. Go back. Get beheaded for doing sorcery or witchcraft or smuggling in drugs or being an atheist because you're a terrorist by definition in Saudi Arabia if you're an atheist. What a joke the Republicans are. You're just so unmoored from reality and so goofy. Yes, you should treat Cuba like any other nation when it comes to the immigration process. Of course, that's such a given. That's such an obvious thing. Now, again, so they would argue, well, look, it's about need. So that's how we want to prioritize it. Need, that's it. We want to be humanitarian. We want to care about the most persecuted people in the world, the Cuban people. Wrong. So if you really wanted to prioritize based on need, who would you prioritize coming in the country? For example, the Rohingya Muslim community in Myanmar. You know, countless reports from human rights bodies saying they may be the most persecuted people in the world. They're in literal camps. So, and it's the Buddhist majority, the right-wing Buddhist majority that are cracking down on the Rohingya Muslims. So, should you prioritize them when they're one of the most persecuted peoples in the world? They would never do that because they're Muslim. How about Syria? Now, I'm not saying you don't vet. I'm in favor of vetting, of course. But, you know, shouldn't you prioritize them over anybody else because there's a fucking civil war that's been going on endlessly and the death count is through the fucking roof and people don't want to die? They're under assault by fucking ISIS and Al-Qaeda. You know, maybe there's some good people there who don't want to join Al-Qaeda or ISIS and don't want to be slaughtered by them or by the government. No, of course, Syria. They don't want anybody from Syria. What about the Congo? Or what about, again, Saudi Arabia or Palestine? Oh, you know, we want to prioritize based on need. Cuban people need it. Really? Do they need it more than Palestinians? As Netanyahu continues to take more and more Palestinian land, build more and more settlements. reload and he's armed to the teeth and he's ready to crack down any given second, and he cuts the grass every now and then, every few years, go in there and massacre a few thousand civilians, minimum 80% civilian death rate in 2014. You know, maybe to help some Palestinians? No. They're Muslim and they're Palestinian and we love Israel, and no, you can't do that. But Cuba, yeah, you live in Cuba, where we are in favor of you immediately getting citizenship. No, have them part of the same fucking process. And yes, you actually should prioritize based on need when it comes to refugees. But that would mean Cuba would not be on the top of the list. I'm not saying they're good, so take your straw man and shove it right back up your fucking ass. I'm not saying they're good. I'm saying when you prioritize the world over, Cuba's not on the top of the list for need when we talk about refugees.